Today is chocolate chip cookie day. If you like ooey gooey chocolate chip cookies, this is the recipe for you. That's the way I love them, and that's what this recipe does. And I'm going to give you one simple trick toward the end to let you know how you can have cookies later and save time down the road. Hi, I'm Mary Catherine, and welcome to my table. Today, we're going to focus on a recipe. It's going to be my very favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe. I know there are lots of chocolate chip cookie recipes, and they're all good, but this has been my go-to recipe for years. It's the one I don't even have to pull a recipe card out anymore. I know this recipe by heart. I made it for my kids when they were growing up, so this is what I'm going to show you today. Okay, so for years, I just mixed these up by hand, and you can absolutely do that if you want to. But in recent years, I've had the big heavy-duty KitchenAid mixer, and it does a great job mixing them up. So just to save me a little bit of elbow grease that's needed for getting them mixed up, I'm going to do it in my mixer and show you how I do that today. The ingredients are very basic, lots of things you'll probably have on hand in your home. There's nothing really fancy about the ingredients, but it's just the way I put them together and just an extra little trick or two that I'll tell you today that make these turn out just delicious. To start with, you'll see that I already have 2 sticks of butter in my mixer. This has been sitting out and is softened, so it's at room temperature. And we'll start by creaming the butter and the sugars together. I have 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. I'm just going to pour it in here. And I have 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. And when you measure this out, you do want to have it packed. So you want to have 3/4 of a packed cup of brown sugar. So we'll dump this in there too. And just let the mixer do its thing for a minute. Okay, and just that quickly, you'll see that it came together. I'm going to scrape down just a little bit up here around the edge and get it down with the rest of it. Okay, so once we've got the sugars and the butter creamed together, then we're going to add 1 egg. And then let it mix. Okay, that's mixed up pretty good. I'm going to scrape it down again just to make sure everything stays together well. Okay, now we want to add our dry ingredients. And so what we have here is 2 1/4 cups of flour. This is just plain all-purpose flour. You do not want self-rising in this recipe. So there we go. We've got our flour. And then we have about a teaspoon of salt, and we have about a teaspoon of cornstarch. And you may think, well, that's a weird ingredient. Why do we put that in the cookies? It's just a little trick. It helps the cookies to stay fresh longer. If you don't have the cornstarch in it, they will still taste delicious when they are hot and fresh. But after about a day or so, they'll start to get that crystallizing effect on the cookie that makes them a little bit harder. And so if you don't want that, add a little cornstarch and it helps them to stay fresh longer without that crystallizing. And then we also have about a teaspoon of baking soda. And so those are our dry ingredients. And of course, turn it on low when you first start this. Absolutely. Let it mix up a little first before you turn it higher. Okay, and you see it starting to come together and look like cookie dough. I'll turn it up a little bit now. Just let it mix well for a minute. Okay, so there we go. It looks like cookie dough. So now we want to add the star of our cookie, the chocolate chips. And I like to mix different kinds of chocolate in my chocolate chip cookies. I love the old standard, the semi-sweet chocolate chips that everybody puts in them. And so I'm going to put about a cup of those. And then I also love to add some of the milk chocolate chips. And so I usually add about equal amounts of the semi-sweet and the milk chocolate. This may be just a tad more. It's what was left in the bag that I had. So it may be just a little bit over that, but more chocolate is not a bad thing. So, okay, let's mix that up. Okay, it looks like those chocolate chips are incorporated into the cookie dough. So we have it done just that quickly. You've got a batch of chocolate chip cookies. So now, we can get this out. And we're going to get a tray ready to bake. Scrape off all that goodness. All right. There we go. So we got our cookie dough. I'm going to take it over here where I've got a cookie sheet ready. And I like to line my cookie sheet with some parchment paper. I think it helps them bake more evenly and they don't get quite as brown on the bottom. And I am a big fan of cookies that are, honestly, they're probably slightly underbaked when I do them because I want them soft and chewy. I don't want them brown and I don't want them crispy. So anyway, with these, I'm going to put them on the parchment paper, and I just have my little scoop that gets them all about the same uniform size. And we'll do a dozen cookies on a tray. All right. So there you can see we've got our cookies ready to pop in the oven. I like to bake these at 325 degrees, and it usually takes about 8 to 9 minutes. And you may think that they're not done when you open the door and look at them at that point, but they will set up a little bit more as they cool. So I go ahead and take them out unless they just look, way underdone. But usually about 8 to 9 minutes at 325 will do the trick. So we'll pop them in the oven now. Okay, so while our cookies are baking, I'm going to show you what I often do with the rest of the cookie dough. It's just the two of us at home now. Our kids are all grown, so we don't need a ton of cookies that are actually baked around the house. So what I do with the extra dough, I just take my scoop and I just pop it down one right next to each other on another tray. And then, when I've got it all filled up, I take it and pop it in the freezer. So basically what I'm doing is flash freezing individual cookie dough balls. And then whenever I need just a quick dessert to take someone, or if somebody's going to pop in here at the house and I want to have something ready and baked for them, I can just pull a few cookies out, put them on a cookie sheet. I let them sit for a few minutes just to kind of get room temperature, and then I pop them in the oven and bake them. And it's so easy. I don't have to make cookie dough every time I want to do that. So that's just a quick tip. Once you flash freeze them on the tray, that will just take, maybe 30 minutes. Let them sit in the freezer. If it's a little longer, that's fine. You don't have to worry about that. But once they're frozen, then I'll show you how you just pop them off the tray. They're real easy to pull up off the tray. And then I pop them in Ziploc bags, and they won't stick to each other because you flash frozen them. And so then the freezer bag will keep them nice and fresh, and you can keep them in there for 2 or 3 months easily. They are just fine to be in there that long. And then when you need them, you just pull out however many you need and put them on your tray and bake them. And it saves a lot of time and trouble, and it saves you from messing up as much in your kitchen. You just have to mess it up one time to make the dough, but you can enjoy cookies several times from that. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the rest of the cookie dough on our tray. I'm getting ready. I'm going to stick it in the freezer to flash freeze it now. Time to get our cookies out of the freezer. And then got my freezer bag ready here, so we're just going to pop them in. They just pull up off the tray, and now they won't stick together in the bag, which is the whole purpose of the flash freezing. Then you can just cook 2 or 3 cookies. You can cook a whole tray, pull out whatever you need when you need it, and just use the same directions to bake them as before. And the only caveat would be you may want to let them sit out on the tray for just a little while before you bake them so that they'll thaw just a little bit. So anyway, so we've got our cookies ready to just store in the freezer like this. Okay, let's take our cookies out. And see, they look like they might not be done, but we're gonna let them sit just a couple minutes before we take them off the tray, and they'll set up a little bit more, and they'll be just perfect when you'll wanna eat them warm with a cold glass of milk. You're gonna love them. It's time to take the cookies off the tray and give them a try. They're definitely still warm. We're gonna have to let them cool another minute or two before we can taste them. All right, it's time to give our cookies a little taste. Let's see. They're gooey. Love that. Perfect. Okay, I hope you enjoy these chocolate chip cookies as much as I do. Thank you for joining me today at Mary Catherine's Table. I'm really glad you were here. If you like today's content and want to see more of this, then I hope you'll hit the subscribe button. Thank you for joining me at Mary Catherine's Table. Show the world a little bit of kindness today.